Welcome to Fraser History Museum and welcome to Progeny of the Passage. Here today with Wave 3, we are going to take a wonderful trip through history. It is part of American history, but it is part of history you may not find in a classroom or in a school book. It is part of the transatlantic slave trade. Some of the history here is painful, but much of it is a history of triumph, and today we're going to share it all. Wave 3 is in your community every day. We tell you the stories of today, we give you the breaking news, but this is about our past. This is about our people, about our community, about our country. It's about each and every one of us that are part of this world today. We will share it with you, things you may never heard before. And so, we have a chance to do that today. And we invite you to come down and see it for yourself. Because the things that sit in front of me here, they are over 200 years old. We'll tell you why they're here. We'll tell you maybe why even you're here, about your family. I'm going to learn about my family. I can't wait. I don't know what's going to unfold. And I hope you'll stay with us within the next 30 minutes and share it with me. Progeny of the Passage, right here at Fraser History Museum, as we celebrate the exhibit of Spirits of the Passage, the transatlantic slave trade.
Slavery didn't just enslave Africans and black people, it enslaved white people. They were chained to this system. Think about the energy, emotional and otherwise, you have to expend to keep people in bondage. Think of what that does to the person psychologically to perpetuate that system. Think about what happens after slavery with Jim Crow and segregation, when you have people expending tremendous amounts of energy to police the color line. So we're all in this system together.
When I was elected to the Kentucky Senate in 1967, I had never stepped my foot in the Senate chamber. I was amazed when I looked around and faced 37 white men. And I said, well, this is my chance. My seatmate, who was chairing the Judiciary Committee, said to me, you'll never pass that. I said, watch me. We can't give up and we can't give in.
History is a great teacher.
But a teacher needs a willing student.
Slavery was not an incidental phenomenon.
Our lesson in the selling of men, women, and children will begin right here at home.
Louisville and Kentucky's role in slavery is pretty distinctive.
Kentucky, generally classified as the Upper South or a border state, is often categorized as a milder form of slavery, although Kentucky slaves still suffered grueling work schedules, especially on hemp and tobacco farms, separation from family, threat of death or severe punishment, and mental, physical, and spiritual abuse. They were property, but it wasn't the Deep South.
Louisville, given its central location on the river, became a site where people were being sold down the river to the cotton plantations and the sugar plantations.
Chances are they would never come back again. They would never, if they were separated from their family, they'd never see their family again.
Kentucky did not lose an economical beat when controversial laws limited and finally banned the importation of slaves. Its intrastate or internal slave trade was full steam ahead, right down the Ohio and all the way to the bank. Its perfect location allowed for a larger number of exported slaves than most states. Hence, the later euphemism for any sort of betrayal, sold downriver. Yet,
The Ohio River was the River Jordan.
slaves could get to the Promised Land if they could successfully cross the Ohio River to the free states of Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois. They could see freedom, but could they get to it? And even then, would they be safe?
The Underground Railroad, the flight across the Ohio River to northern localities, and the struggles that creates.
That was also an important part of the slave trade, because slave catching was a lucrative business as well.
Even freedom had its evils.
You also have to be afraid every moment of every day that you would be kidnapped and sold into slavery.
A small black and gold marker at the corner of 2nd and Main Streets in downtown Louisville, just feet from the Yum Center, reminds us of the story of people shackled together in pens when not on display to buyers.
It's the center of Louisville then and now, right?
Learn it, share it, know it. That is part of our community's past. And as we talk about past, my heart is beating a little fast. Progeny of the passage, I'm going to learn mine now. History that my family has gone and talked about and talked about and talked about and don't really know. Debbie, will you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Debbie Renard, and I'm with the Louisville Genealogical Society.
Okay, they've been working so hard. And Deborah, please.
And I'm Deborah Lord Camposano, and I'm with Louisville Genealogical Society. We're the family history detectives.
And they are. They are the family history detectives. I had a chance to sit and have coffee and sit with how many? I guess it was about 6 or 7 of us.
There's about 5 or 6 on the team.
Okay, and tell them what I didn't know, which I really had just little bits and pieces, and I think that's how the history is for a lot of us. So here we go. We're going to learn my family's history. Couldn't do that without part of my family. I want to call my mom, Joanna Smith, my dad, Walter Smith, and my cousin, Ronald Kenton Smith. That was your cue to come in, my family, who's just over there. They're watching me as if I'm on TV. Yeah, I called you all here for a reason. Please find your way. Yeah, you missed your cue, Mom. That's right. They're here. My cousin, Kenny, who is the closest thing I have to a brother, did the Y when we did DNA because my dad doesn't have a son. Here we go. Ready?
Absolutely. Well, Don, one of your great-great-grandfathers on your mother's side was Caesar Nettles, who, as you know, was married to Huldah Warren, and here's their marriage certificate.
Okay.
And here's the Nettles tree we started with, based on what you gave us. It's a very wide tree because Caesar and Huldah had 15 children. So, yes, many children. And I think you've been to the old Christiansburg Cemetery in Shelby County where they were buried, but you may not have known exactly where they lived. We found the 1891 deed where Caesar bought their property in Hinesville, less than a mile from Christiansburg. And we can also see exactly where those lot numbers were in Hinesville on an 1882 map, right there.
1882.
Yes. And we know from Caesar's death record that his father's name was also Caesar. And we found 2 sisters born to Caesar Sr. And from older sister Annie's death record, we've identified the elder Caesar's wife as a woman named Miami. And since Annie was born just a few years before your great-great-grandfather Caesar, we are confident that Annie's mother, Miami, was also Caesar's mother and is therefore your great-great-great-grandmother. Now, this is where the trail becomes a little bit less clear, but based on the evidence, we believe that Caesar Sr. was the son of a George Nettles, about whom we know some interesting facts.
Uh-oh.
Well, George was the son of Henry Nettles, whose 1825 will we found in Shelby County. And the will states that Henry has 4 children, Mariah and Rachel, 2 free girls, as it says.
They were free.
And Spencer and George, slaves, in possession of Richard Higgins of Lexington, Kentucky. And members of the Higgins family came to Kentucky from Virginia as early as 1776. And they became very prominent in Fayette County as merchants and plantation owners. And Henry Nettles is also found with his wife and 4 children in the 1820 Fayette County census. So Henry, who we believe would be your 5 greats-grandfather, was a freedman very early. Some members of the Nettles family, such as Sister Annie, went north to Hamilton County, Ohio, and they may have been involved with the historic Union Baptist Church there, as they were buried in its cemetery. And they're there along with anti-slavery activists and members of the Underground Railroad.
My family activist?
Yes.
What?
So, after all of our research on your Nettles line, this is what the tree looks like now. So, we'll be delighted to share this with you later on, all the details.
We didn't have that. We didn't. Isn't that amazing? Okay. And Dad, we have some on yours too, but we're going to talk to you ladies that know. What do you know, Deborah? Uh-oh. Do we
Clear
like
my
all
things
that?
out of the way.
Yes, I think
Yes,
you
you
will.
will.
I think you will be very pleased. Now, again, my focus was on your mother's side. Okay, Joanna, there's you, and of course your mother was Ina Mae Patty, and her father was Frank Patty, and then we had a Josephine. Okay, there was also a story about a Civil War soldier who was with the Company D of the 54th Massachusetts, which was, of course, a colored regiment that was the focus of the movie Glory, and John Burns. John Burns. So you mentioned John Burns quite a bit in the initial interview, so we decided to look into John a little bit more. So we sent off for his Civil War pension file.
You can do that?
Yes. We sent off to the National Archives and we received the pension file. It's very thick. This is just a couple of pages from it. But basically what it told us was that this John Burns was a slave who ran from northern Kentucky. He was born in Bath County. He went to Boston and he changed his name. He was actually Richard Burns, and to avoid the slave catchers, because he did escape and go to Boston, but to avoid the slave catchers, when he enlisted, he changed his name to John Burns. So the pension file was actually listed under both names, John Burns and Richard Burns. But in learning about this, after the Civil War, the war ended. He was just in the latter part of the Civil War. He returned to northern Kentucky. He settled in Maysville. We found 2 marriages for him. He states in the pension file that he had no living children. And he lived and died in Maysville.
So he's not kin to us.
So what the confusion is here was that there are more than one John Burns. And the John Burns that was in Louisville, that was involved with the Baptist Church, that was one of the founders, is a different John Burns. So that kind of debunks that family story.
Right.
So you don't have someone from the 54th Massachusetts.
Okay.
So then we said, well, then who is Josephine's father? So we sent off for Ina Mae's birth certificate. Okay, that was your mother, right?
Yes.
Right. So we sent off for Ina Mae's birth certificate, and in the certificate, we have Frank Patty, Josephine Bartleston is the mother, okay? Josephine. So we went to look for Josephine, and we found her with her father, Alvarine, or Alvin Bartleston, in the 1900 census. This shows her, Josephine, and her birth date, and in the census in 1900. Also, we found her in a city directory with Josephine in 1900. She gets married in Clark County for the first time, and her father is witness to that marriage. Here she is in 1920.
I tell you what, Mom, I hate to do this to you. You're going to have to go over and step over and learn more of this history. This is how it happens. You get caught up in this history and you want to learn it all. I got to let you all go because I got to find out about my history, and we're going to take a break, but we never had this much.
We've never had this much.
Never. Stay with us, stay with us, stay with us. I'll be back. I got to hear the rest of this. Stay with us.
So here she is.
It's America's history, good or bad. It's the building of this country. It's the history. It's what's been left out of the history books. It's what needs to be in the history books. It's how this country was built. You must know your history or you're doomed to repeat it. That's what I've been taught.
Newly captured, and on my way to America, I was shackled together in the hold of a ship with nearly 500 others. It was a journey only the strong of body and spirit, survived. We will survive. We will rebel and one day free ourselves, and our children will thrive among you.
You will know the person in this next story, but it's what she doesn't know and what she's looking for that is so interesting.
I don't know what I'm going to find, but I think I'm going to find more roots, more branches of my tree. It's going to connect the dots for me.
Councilwoman Sherry Bryant Hamilton could not be any more proud of her work in the community or of her family. She knows exactly where to dig in when tackling the issues that face her district and the community, but finding her ancestors and trying to learn her story has been a long and arduous task.
At a certain point, you get to a wall. It's frustrating because I don't know how they got here. I don't know where they first came, where they landed.
And painfully, Hamilton's mother suffers from dementia, leaving the family to connect the dots of their narrative with no documents and without the one person who could not only recall key parts of their story, but live some of them too.
She would be happy that I'm doing this because she was the family historian. We need to preserve what we have, value it more.
Hamilton has herself worked on the family tree for 30 years. She hopes with the latest help from the Louisville Genealogical Society, her tree will not only blossom, but grow.
Because my family's rather small. If I could have some extended family or get to know some second, third, fourth cousins, twice removed, it just, the more the merrier.
Sherry Bryant Hamilton, Councilwoman. The history is hers, so I'm going to let her get to her story. Nancy, please introduce yourself.
I'm Nancy Robertson, and I'm president of the Louisville Genealogy Society, and I'm thrilled to have been able to work on Sherry's family.
And we are so just thankful for you. And Sherry, are you ready?
Oh, I'm excited. I can't wait.
Well, when we spoke to Sherry, Sherry gave us several things that she was concerned about her family and wanted to find out. With our limited time, I have two to present to her. Sherry asked if her great-grandfather, Evie Carter Kilgore's father, was white. He is her great-grandfather on her mother's side of the family, and as we began the research backwards, we find him in Texas in 1855. We find him as the son to Alan Kilgore, which I think she knew, and Alan Kilgore was born. We found Alan's death certificate, and on his death certificate it states his father is Willis Kilgore. Now, another interesting fact is we found Alan in the 1880 census in Texas, and it stated he's 26, he's a mulatto, and he's a farmer, which tells us he's half white, half black. He's with his wife, and also her grandfather's listed. He's 4 years old as Carter. So on the death certificate, though, it states his father is Willis. So we start researching Willis, and we discover that Willis is white. And he is the only Willis Kilgore in this area of Texas where Alan was born. So we start researching Willis more, and we find out Willis is white. He was born in Georgia, comes to Texas in 1846 with his family, owned slaves, and probably had a cotton plantation. We do a little research on Willis. We do a little research on Willis. He had two sons and him enlisted in the Civil War. He was in the Texas 10th Regiment. We couldn't find him in 1870. So we go back to the Civil War records. He died shortly after he enlisted in a battle of Wilson Creek in Missouri. But due to the evidence we've collected, we really believe Willis is your great-great-grandfather, the father of Alan Kilgore.
Does that not blow you away?
It does. It does. Even just find it on the record.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because he was claimed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to let her just take that all in. It floors me the way you all can do this. We're gonna take another break. We'll be right back. Wow.
Wow.
Newly captured, and on my way to America, I was shackled together in the hold of a ship with nearly 500 others. It was a journey only the strong of body and spirit, survived.
We appreciate so much the help we're getting from the Louisville Genealogical Society and the DNA I was able to get, but you can do it on your own. Yvette Norsworthy shows us exactly how.
You start with what you know.
It's an easy first step for anyone on the long journey of tracing their history and finding their ancestors.
I went by that and started sending away for death certificates.
Norsworthy went by the information given to her by her grandmother, information she recorded. The death certificates filled in a lot of what they didn't know: birth date, birthplace, possibly parents' names.
Some of it has been mind-blowing because nicknames. I spent years looking for Cindy Robinson and could not find her.
Norsworthy's search for her grandfather's grandmother, her great-great-grandmother, hit a point where all of the tricks she had in her genealogical bag of tricks were not helping. It was a simple conversation with her mother as they scrolled through a list of several names and statistics that another door in history was open for her family.
Lose Cindy. Once I got that, everything started to roll.
She was on a roll all the way back to
1796.
By this time, a law was in the works aimed at stopping the importation of slaves, but the intrastate